All right, let's dive right into one of my favorite puzzles. We're going to tackle a riddle that's been melting brains for, about 2,500 years. It's a thought experiment from ancient Greece that seems to prove something our eyes tell us is impossible. And in doing that, it really makes you question everything you think you know about space, time, and, well, reality itself.
I mean, it sounds completely ridiculous, doesn't it? But the logic you're about to hear is so convincing, so airtight, that it left some of the greatest minds in history totally stumped for centuries. So could the legendary warrior Achilles actually lose a foot race to a tortoise? Let's break it down. So the guy who came up with this whole thing was an ancient Greek philosopher named Zeno of Elea. And for him, this wasn't just some fun party trick. He designed this thought experiment as a serious challenge to the very idea of motion. He wanted to use a simple race to prove an incredibly deep and mind-bending point.
Okay, let's set the stage so we're all on the same page. Let's put some real numbers to it. On one side, you've got Achilles, the fastest hero around, running a quick 10 meters every second. And on the other, our tortoise, just kind of plodding along at a steady 1 meter per second. Now, to make things fair, Achilles, being the good sport he is, gives the tortoise a 100-meter head start.
Now, here's how Zeno traps you with his logic. He says, look, before Achilles can pass the tortoise, he first has to get to where the tortoise started, right? That's 100 meters away. Simple enough. But in the time it took Achilles to run those 100 meters, the tortoise didn't just stand still, he moved forward. So now Achilles has to cover that new, smaller gap. But by the time he does that, the tortoise has moved again. You see the problem? Zeno argues this creates an infinite number of tiny gaps that Achilles has to cross, one after another.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the paradox. Zeno's logic feels completely solid. I mean, an infinite number of tasks that has to take an infinite amount of time to get done, doesn't it? Well, this brilliant insight was also his one, single, crucial mistake, and it's the key that unlocks this whole puzzle.
So if our common sense is screaming that Achilles obviously wins this race, but Zeno's flawless logic says he can't even catch up, where's the flaw? Where's the trick? Well, the answer, it turns out, isn't in philosophy. It's in the beautiful, elegant world of mathematics.
Let's actually look at the numbers here. The total distance Achilles needs to run to catch the tortoise is just the sum of all those little gaps that Zeno was talking about. You've got the first 100 meters, plus the next 10 meters the tortoise moved, plus the next 1 meter, then the next 10 centimeters, and so on, forever. It's literally an infinite list of numbers that you have to add up. And this is where the magic really happens. See, mathematicians have a name for this exact situation. It's called a convergent series, and it's one of the coolest, most counterintuitive ideas out there. It proves that you can add up an infinite number of things and still get a totally finite normal number at the end, as long as the things you're adding keep getting smaller and smaller, fast enough.
And what's so brilliant about this is that it's not just the distance that converges. The amount of time it takes Achilles to cover each of these shrinking gaps also shrinks. A lot. Think about it. It takes him 10 seconds to cover that first 100-meter gap, but it only takes him 1 second for the next gap, and then 1/10 of a second for the one after that, and so on. The number of tasks becomes infinite, yeah, but the time it takes to do each one gets ridiculously close to zero. So here's the punchline. When you add up that infinite list of shrinking time chunks, 10 seconds, plus 1 second, plus 0.1 seconds, plus 0.01 seconds, and on, it doesn't go on forever. It all adds up, or converges, to a very specific, very finite number, about 11.11 seconds. And that's it. That's the moment Achilles not only catches the tortoise, but finally blows right past him.
So, paradox solved. But we shouldn't feel too smug about it. This riddle was so tricky, so profound, that it took humanity more than 2,000 years to come up with the right mathematical tools to officially solve it. So what made it so tough for so long?
Well, the ancient world, for all of its incredible genius, was just missing a few key items in its intellectual toolbox. They didn't have calculus, they didn't have the concept of limits, things that are absolutely essential for dealing with the weirdness of infinity. The very idea that you could complete an infinite number of steps in a finite time was it was unthinkable. For centuries, great thinkers like Aristotle had to come up with these philosophical workarounds instead of just solving it with math.
And here's why this ancient puzzle is way more than just a historical curiosity. The very same math that cracks Zeno's paradox, this theory of convergent series, it's not just some abstract idea.
It is the fundamental bedrock for a ton of modern technology. We're talking about everything from the algorithms that run on your computer to how your retirement fund is calculated to how we compress sound and images.
So while math gives us this really clean, satisfying answer, Zeno's paradox it leaves this little philosophical ghost behind. It sort of forces us to ask an even deeper, even more fundamental question about the actual nature of our universe.
See, the math solution we just walked through works perfectly if you assume that space and time are smooth and continuous, that you can just keep dividing them up into smaller pieces forever and ever. But what if they're not? Some modern theories in physics play with the idea that the universe might actually be discrete, that it's made up of these tiny, fundamental, indivisible units, kind of like pixels on a giant cosmic screen. And in a universe like that, Zeno's paradox couldn't even happen, because you literally can't divide space an infinite number of times. The race would just be a series of tiny little jumps.
And that's where we'll leave it. Zeno's 2,500-year-old race brings us right to the cutting edge of modern physics. He set out to prove that motion was just an illusion, but what he actually did was give us this timeless riddle that makes us ask one of the biggest unanswered questions in all of science. Is our reality smooth like a ramp, or is it, at the most fundamental level, pixelated like a screen? It's a question we're still trying to answer today.